Hi everyone, welcome back to Brookdale Farm. Well, it's a hot, dry, windy day here today, and our wheat and oats are getting very close to being ready to harvest. So the wheat heads have dried right out. There's no green left in them. So these are about ready for me to start on. So the job we are doing today is we've got to do a little bit of work to our harvester front to get it ready for harvest. Now this goes on the front of our New Holland TR88 harvester, and this is what takes all the grain up into the machine. So this reel here turns, and these fingers here help pull the grain into the front. There is a knife down here that oscillates backwards and forwards between these fingers. And this cuts the heads off the grain and feeds it into the spiral there, which takes it down into the middle, where it feeds it up into the harvester. Now this harvester's done a fair bit of work over the years, so we've got to do a bit of work to this front to get it ready. Now all of these here run on a piece of pipe which is bushed in I think 5 different spots along it, and these bushes are all worn out. If you have a look at that, you can see how much movement there is in there, and if you have a look underneath here, you can see that it's actually chopped almost right through the bush in there. Now these are a 2-piece nylon bush, so I've got some new ones here. They sell them individually rather than in the pairs that you need them. So there's 60 of them on this machine. We can see how much movement there is in that one. If we come up to this one that I've just changed, we can see that that is almost, there's almost no movement in there at all. So that's good. These pipes are slightly worn on here as well, so I'm not going to get rid of all the movement in there. And like any 5-minute job, all you need to do is undo this bolt, pop the old bushes out, put the new ones in, put this steel band back around it. And any 5-minute job like this, of course, you're still battling with 45 minutes later. So I'm going to pull this one apart now and show you how it's done. Okay, to change this bush, we're just going to undo this bolt in here. And then pull the bolt out. And then we just want to spread this little metal clamp here a little bit and pull that off. And then these old bushes just pull out like that. So if we compare this old bush, you can see how thin that is. That's almost worn right through compared to how thick the new one is. These were well and truly due to be replaced. Now these new ones are a little bit fatter, so they're a bit hard to get in. There's a little lug here that you've got to line up in here. So we put them around our shaft and just pull it down a little bit. Grab a rubber mallet. Make sure they're tapped right in so that the lug here lines up, and then we can tap them up into place. Once we've got them far enough in, we can put a screwdriver through here, and this just helps to lever them the rest of the way up into place. This metal bracket is quite hard to get back on. There's 2 little spots in here with lugs that on here. So it's easy enough to clip it into place like that. It looks like this one's actually going to fit. The last one I didn't fit very easily at all. And it is much easier if you put the bolt in from this direction. It's not the way they came apart, but at least then you can see what you're doing a bit more easily. Then put the nut back on, do it up, and there's just another 58 to go. Now these are self-locking nuts, so they shouldn't come undone. So while we are changing these bushes in here, the other bushes we need to check are these ones in here. Now these ones are pretty easy to get out. There's just one bolt in there, and this piece comes out. This should have a finger on it that helps draw the crop in on here as well. And then these just unscrew. So I'm going to take that out now and I'll show you what it looks like once I've got it out. Okay, so I've got this bush out here. It's just a screw together bush. It's got a strange shaped thread on here. And it also has a little locking tab on here that engages with a ratchet on the inside of the nut. So to get to that, to undo it, if we just spin this round, you can get a screwdriver in just up here to undo the ratchet. Now this is the hole that the bush fits into. It's quite important to make sure these bushes stay in good condition. What happens when these wear out? This is just a thin piece of plate here, and we've got a rather odd shaped hole in here. When the bush wears out, you flog this hole out, this round hole out pretty quickly, and the new bushes don't fit in properly again when you come to replace them. So these holes here are locking tabs to stop the bush spinning in here, and this is where the locking tab to undo the bush comes through. And once this hole's flogged out, you've got to work out then how to put a piece of tin back in to make it the right shape hole. It becomes a much bigger job than just unscrewing the bush and screwing a new one in. So to refit this new bush, it's just a matter of getting it round the right way. This little locking tab goes in the top, and that lines up the two holes, the two other holes, and then we come around this side and we just screw the inner nut on. Make sure it's still lined up. It's a little bit hard to do one-handed. Put a spanner on that, tighten that up a little bit, and then just put this bolt assembly back in here. Now this bolt assembly, if I just undo the nut off it, you can see the end of the bolt here, if I can get it in the light, has a line across it here. This bolt is an octagonal bolt, and that line is to line up the roller here that holds the end finger to make it point in the right direction. So just take notice of where that line is when you pull it apart so that you can put it back in the same spot again. The next thing we have to do is change this knife guard here. So I've broken one of these fingers off that should be over here. This is the knife here that moves backwards and forwards. When it goes between these fingers, it cuts any of the crop that's in there. So these just have two bolts underneath down here with a cup head up here on top to stop them turning, and then you just get a new section like that and bolt it in there. Now the next set, we're in the middle of the comb now. This is the spiral down the middle, and these are the retractable pickup fingers. So as this turns around, they come out here, pick up the crop, sweep it in, back under here and into the machine, and they retract as they do. Now these little rubber bushes or plastic bushes here, we need to check and make sure are in good condition. I am missing one, and you can see here where the metal pin has been flogging backwards and forwards in this hole, and it's actually burred the hole over. So I couldn't get the parts I needed to fix this, so I've just taken the pin out. Having a metal on metal banging against each other is quite a good way to start a fire. So make sure these are in good condition, or at least that you remove the pins so that you're not going to start a fire. So the last thing I like to do on the combs, we've got to come through with the grease gun and grease all the grease nipples on it. Particularly these ones on the end of the knife, they work quite hard, these pins in here. So you've got to keep the lubrication up to them. And I like to just go through and oil all the chains. And once I get this, we'll put it on the machine next and run it up, and that helps get the oil over everything. And then we'll give it a bit more of an oil up again after it's been run for a little while. These chains did all get oiled at the end of last season when I put it away, but they're all looking a bit dry now. So the next thing we've got to do is hook up the comb onto our harvester over here. Now they're nicely made, so they're reasonably easy to hook up. It does take a bit of shuffling to get it right, but the comb sits on this channel here, and then there's two bolts that go down in here to hold the comb on. So we've got to drive this forward, drop the front down, line it up exactly, which is the tricky bit, and then lift this up to pick the comb up. If we have a look over here at the back of the comb, this is where that shoe fits on the comb, and we pick it up from here, and then the two bolts go down through these bits here to hold it securely. And it's always a bit tricky to get it lined up exactly right and exactly square, and it always takes me a couple of goes to do it. To finish properly attaching our comb, we've got to come in here. There's two little spring clips, one on either side in here. Okay, next we have to bolt the comb on down the bottom. Now it's a little bit awkward to get to this bolt. You've got to put the bolt in from underneath. And then there's a washer that goes on and a nut. But it's very hard to get a spanner onto this nut to do it up. So usually what I do is I hold it with a screwdriver from the top, and then use a spanner underneath it to on the bolt head to tighten it up. Next we need to connect these two PTO shafts. These are the knife drive shafts. There's one on either side. And we need to make sure that this little safety ratchet has popped right out. There we go, that's on. We know that's right. So there's a PTO shaft on either side, as well as a bolt and the clip. The last thing we need to do is to hook up the hydraulic hoses. There's two on this side and three hoses on the other side. The last really important piece of maintenance to do on the comb is to check the oil in these knife drive gearboxes. Now they've just got a level bung on the side here. These are quite small gearboxes, so it's important, geez that's tight, it's important to check them regularly and make sure that they're not leaking oil out, you're not running them dry, because you'll blow them up very quickly if you do. That one's got stacks of oil in it, so we should now be ready. The comb should now be ready to go. I hope you've enjoyed this little video on maintenance on our harvester comb. This maintenance is applicable to most solid front combs. So not the draper belt combs, but most of this style of comb. We've been through all the regular things that you need to check. We've still got a little bit more to do on the harvester before we're ready to start harvesting. So we'll get onto that next week. I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.